Hi, welcome to my video channel where we question everything. Today's subject is, please listen and do not only hear what is said. I'm going to be very honest up front. When I prepared these videos and what I wanted to say, the ideas, words and sentences were easy to formulate in my head. However, sitting in front of the camera, trying to recall what I wanted to say, and then talking to myself, is no easy task, and I keep leaving things out of what I wanted to say. So in all honesty, at this stage, I'm using a teleprompter. Hopefully it will improve as I do more and more videos and will become easier to talk without assistance. Okay, so let's start. There are two very important concepts I first have to address before we can discuss anything else. The first is the importance of listening to a person. People hear what they want to hear and not what is always said. This applies to the written word as well. One reads what one wants to read and not what is always written. The other important concept is what is right and what is wrong, but this will be discussed in the next video. We all know the bush telegraph, something most of us probably have done when we were kids. This is when a number of kids sit in a row. The first one is given a message. He then passes it on and whispers the message into the ear of the kid next to him, and so on and so forth. When the last kid hears the message, he says it out loud. Usually the original message has been lost, altered, and is not even what the original message was. The variance can be significant. This is a typical example of people hearing and not listening. Proper communication is one of the most difficult tasks a person can do, and it is also an absolute essential part of our daily life and the cause of so many misunderstandings, arguments, and unnecessary fights. It consists out of two parts: the proper expression of a message by the one person and the proper understanding of the message by the other person who is listening. Both very, very difficult tasks. We all have a limited vocabulary. I think the average person has a vocabulary of 2,000 words. Yes, not all of us are blessed by being experts in our native language, although we would like to believe that we are. So when one has an argumentative discussion, one is constrained by these limited words, and therefore ideas are usually not properly conveyed to the other person. Therefore, for me, it is important that the listener tries to understand the message and concepts that are being conveyed and not only to the words. Unfortunately, this is where the core of the problem lies. Have you ever had an argument or discussion about a certain subject only to find out 1 hour later that you are talking about something totally different? When I was younger, I had developed a technique to backtrack any conversation and see how the discussion deviated from the original topic or argument. I would then determine where things went wrong. You can call it a type of flow chart, and it was quite interesting. Nowadays, when the two parties deviate from the original idea or the topic, I try to get back to it pronto. If the discussion progressed to another topic, this is fine. However, a mutual decision must have been made to move on from the original topic. I know that the idea of hammering the original concept and argument and always trying to go back to it frustrates my counterparties considerably, but this is important in any discussion. As I have just pointed out, in any argumentative discussion, one has to try and listen beyond the words per se and try to understand the message or concept that the other party is trying to convey. And this is a very difficult thing to do, especially because people hear words but do not really listen and understand what is actually being said. This is especially true if the parties use examples to explain an idea or a concept. These examples, most of the time, lead to deviations from the original idea or concept. At the end of the day, it's all about concepts and ideas, not the words used to explain the concepts. If you argue about facts, such as the color of a ball, then it's a factual argument and proof must be provided. However, this is seldom the case in an argumentative discussion. This phenomena is actually very easy to explain. When a narrator tries to make his argument, the other party, meaning the counterparty, might hear trigger words. The counterparty stops listening and the trigger words sets in his mind into action, starting to formulate a new argument even while the original narrator is still trying to make his original point. And this is fatal because the narrator, at that stage, might not even have made the main point of his argument. And I call this hearing. The listener then either interrupts the narrator before he has finished his point of argument, or he tries to argue his newfound concept based on his trigger words. This is usually how the conversation moves from the one idea or concept to the next, and thus the original ideas are never fully pursued to their conclusion. Both of these deviations occur especially when this narrator uses an example to explain his idea or concept. This forces the narrator to either address a new argument that has deviated from the original idea, or he ignores it, and the latter is a very difficult thing to do. Sometimes it also forces the narrator to start from scratch, and thus he must try to remake his argument, again running the risk of deviating from the original concept. Naturally, hearing an argument instead of listening to what is actually said can be very detrimental to one's well-being. I believe we all have had these experiences when we argue with our wife or girlfriends. The concept of listening is very important because it not only allows you to understand the message better, but also allows you to remember what has been said 2 or 5 or 10 minutes ago. This is important in any argumentative discussion, in order to correct or counter the narrator's argument, idea, or concept by pointing out the contradictions of his argument or the error in his logic. People have a very short memory. So next time, if you have an argumentative discussion, or even an argument with somebody else, carefully listen to that person and try to understand what is being said, and do not think what is being said. As a tip, if you ever find yourself in a discussion with somebody that thinks he knows everything or is an expert on a subject, start asking him questions like a typical 5-year-old. For such purposes, there is a word called why. And I'm sure you can get better variations of this word, not to sound like this typical 5-year-old. In any case, I call these people idiots, and I can tell you, I hate idiots. I respect people with a low IQ because most of the time they usually have skills that you do not have and are better at certain things than you will ever be. So coming back to these idiots, you can use some of the following phrases. Why do you say so? I do not understand. Can you please explain more what you mean? What do you mean by this or that? What about this or that? In the end, he will not be able to explain anymore and will dismiss the argument. This is when you know he has tried to bamboozle you, thus you can expose his lack of understanding and knowledge. And I can tell you this technique works time and again. I would like to stop here now. If you like what you heard, please press the like button. If you want to listen more, please subscribe to my channel. It only takes a second. Thank you for listening, and until next time, cheers.